Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show where we talk about the issues that affect the customer experience at your stores. Because the better the experience, the more they come back to you for everything they need when they need it. And my good buddy Paul Machin is back on the show, and we're going to be covering the first 6 months of the year and maybe talk about some projections as to what the data is saying. So welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. It's always a pleasure to be here, brother. Always a pleasure to be here.
So for the couple of folks that may or may not know you, why don't you just give us your background before we jump right in?
I've been in the business close to 34 years now. I started used cars, got into the franchise side with Saturn, did that for about 8 years. And then I was recruited by CarMax. CarMax told me, we do everything like Saturn does, except we had technology to it. And I said, I'm in. Did that for about five years. And in 2023, we started, Mark O'Neill started Black Book, and I was recruited to, Dealer Track. I was recruited to go to Dealer Track in 2003 and did that for almost 13 years. And now I'm with Black Book, and it's on the data side of the business. So software as a service was Dealer Track, and now Black Book is data as a service.
Data, the new currency, right?
That's right. That's right. And that's what's phenomenal is that, you just when I started with Black Book, it was, why do I need your data? Now it's, oh God, let's talk about your data. I need it.
So it's been an interesting first 6 months of the year here.
It has been, sir. It's a lot of uncertainty, as you'll see. By the way, can everyone see my screen? Do you know?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't put the. You want me to put the show up, the slideshow?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that, and then we'll jump in, because the last 6 months it's really been about, okay, what's going on in the market? How's the ultimate decision maker, as we all know, is John Q. Public, right? It doesn't matter what any media pundits say, forecast analysts, lenders, investment groups, dealer group, doesn't matter what any of them say. What matters is how John Q. Public is reacting. And right now, they're letting the world know it's uncertain times for them. And those who are smart are holding back. So I just changed screens. Can you see where it says first half 2024 review?
First half 2024 review. Yeah.
So, first let me say that everyone who has listened to me in the past knows that I often have said that I was mentored in the early 90s. And one of the key alternative businesses to keep your eye on as an indicator of what to expect in the automotive industry was the mortgage industry, new home sales, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why I was told is they said, well, what happens in the mortgage industry usually has trailed 6 to 9 months later and impacts the automotive industry. And that's been true for a really long time until recently. And it's been pretty much neck and neck. So what's happening in the mortgage industry and the home sales is also happening in the automobile industry, almost at the same time, comparable. And so I came up with something, and I called it the speed of information that John Q. Public has access to sets their expectation. And when that experience matches or exceeds the knowledge that they have gained themselves, then the level of emotion, their intention to do business with a business goes through the roof. But there's got to be a match there, right?
Yeah.
And if it's not there, they're just not going to do it. So keeping that in mind, because there's a reason why I'm bringing that up, because it's going to dovetail everything I'm going to share with you. So auto sales grew slightly in the second quarter. That's what the used car factory produced. And some of the comments that's in this article, much of the auto industry really did not expect some of the lag. But the first 3 months was pretty consistent, right? We had some pretty good rates of sale, even with high interest rates.
Yeah.
But the last 3 months, we had high interest rates, high vehicle prices, and incredible uncertainty about the economy that consumers were saying. But Paul, that's not a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone because we've been discussing this for at least 2 years minimum. So what happened in late June? Sales in late June were slowed by the disruptions at the dealerships by CDK.
Yep. Hold on, Paul, do you want to be on this? Is this the slide you want to be on, the first half of 2024?
Yep, I'll be switching here in a second.
Perfect.
So we forecasted Black Book, about 15.7 million new car sales. Other forecasters were closer to 16 million. And estimates state that in the first 6 months of 2024, about 7.9 million vehicles were sold, which is an increase of 3%. And that's a pace of 16 million units if the sales rate kept up. So what happened is in Q2, estimates we say are coming in about 4.1 million new cars and trucks that were sold in Q2. That's a marked slowdown from the first 3 months of this year, when sales were growing at about 5% click. In the first 6 months of 2024, we're currently pacing at about 7.9 new vehicles were sold, and that's an increase of 3% from the first half of last year. So slow growth is expected to continue through the end of the year, and that's from Jonathan Smoke, Cox's chief economist. We also support that. We say the same thing. The market is roiled by uncertainty, he said. He also said we probably can't keep the pace of sales of the first half, but we aren't expecting a collapse in sales, especially since vehicle inventory levels, they say, are growing, incentives are increasing, and there's growing uncertainty in the market. So
I see a lot more cars on dealer lots, Paul.
A whole lot more, right? So this is a graph by market Mark Lines talking about the impact of the cyber attacks, right? And what did they last, like 8 days, 9 days?
Yeah, something like
Dealers
that.
were down. So they're estimating that June new car sales down roughly 3.2%. The real numbers are really not in yet because you got dealer groups still processing and reporting sales.
Right.
That equates to roughly 45,000 fewer future used vehicles that were produced, or an annualized sales rate of 15.3 million units. So let's think about that for a sec. We were on pace for 16 million, and just like that, we've lost almost 700,000 annualized on pace. That's if there's more black swan events that were to happen. Hopefully nothing like that happens, but there are some other things we need to be concerned about. How did the incentives do for 4th of July, right? We saw incentive spend tick up by 6.7% in May. All right, this is an article put out by Auto Finance. James put it out on July 3rd. And they were expecting, another tiny bump in overall incentives. But here's the rub. If the average transaction price or selling price of a new car is roughly 47,000, I'm rounding it to make it easy for math. And if the incentives are 6.7% on average, that means there's $3,149 in incentive spending. So the question is that really helping? What is that? Is it really giving us an impact that we need to drive even more sales? And when you really study the numbers behind everything and it impacts new car sales, I don't think it is. I don't think we're getting that lift that we should be getting. See, we only went up 6.7%, but the average new car rate ending in June, look at this jump from in that rate there, right? Right now, the end of June, they're saying the rate was 7.92% at 8%. That's according to Experian data, state of the auto finance for Q1. And it's not changed much. It's pretty much the same as it is now. And the average financed was $732 a month at 67 months. I mean, that's pretty staggering. Now, how does that compare to pre-owned car sales?
Well, has that come down a little bit? Because I'm seeing a lot of 7-8-5 month terms.
It's down. Overall, it's down a little bit. But so the longer terms is when you go near prime and below.
Okay.
But so you really dealers need to go and invest research and energy in studying what Melinda Zabritsky talks about in the state of the automotive finance. Because the bottom line is we can't sell a vehicle unless we have the lenders willing to give the advances and the terms we need for the consumer with the credit, right? we're not our own bank, but so we've got to have those relationships. So the average pre-owned payment was $523, again for 67.3 months. Now here's the key. You and I have been talking frequently of what the ideal payment range is pre-owned wise, right? And that's been $400 a month, the target. And that was based off of what is the realistic payment that the average income in the United States can afford, which is the average income right now is right about $75,000 gross. So that stipulates, based on all the parameters, you should be about $400 a month. Well, they just said, Experian, that 33.6% of all loans that were financed used under $400 a month. Think about that for a second. 33.6%. That's a pretty pretty strong number, because on the peak side, as you see here, it's 523. So what's that buffer, that $123 difference between 400 and 523? That's roughly $4,000 to $5,000 in price difference on a vehicle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's been a steady distribution there's been a steady distribution in uptick in near subprime finance. So this red box you see here, Paul, that purple, that's near subprime, right? So about 2020, if you were a 650, you know, pre-pandemic, you were considered prime, right? Right after the beginning of the pandemic, right around 2020, you were no longer considered prime, you were considered near prime. So look at the difference. Went up 19 to 20 to 19 and a half to 18.6. So they've been pretty consistent as far as moving up or down between a point, maybe a half a point, right? But when you get into the subprime and the deep subprime, you could see they had some real losses in overall distribution. And that, in my opinion, is the reason why the near prime did so well, is there was a large population of 650 Beacon customers or credit score customers who are now considered near prime and are doing everything they can get back to prime status, because they really enjoyed all the benefits of having prime and prime plus credit, right?
Hold
However,
on one second.
deep subprime,
Greg's got a comment or question here. He said 73% had to be bumped on price or payment.
Correct. He's correct. And there are, so again, I don't have the slide in here, but in their presentation, I think they were saying close to 70, like 73.5, 74% are super prime and prime plus and super prime. Hold on, I lost my place in my slides. Let me get back to it again for you.
There you
go. We were here, all right? So when you look at deep subprime and subprime and what the distribution and advanced levels, they've steadily decreased since 2019, while prime plus and super prime increased, to Greg's point, went up. I think that's great news for the industry, because I think the lenders have been intentionally shoring up reserves and capitalizing their monthly recurring revenue by having a steadier base of consumers that are near prime, prime plus, and super prime that can pay, because they will be looking at this untouched market that's been really underserved. We have the lowest penetration and distribution of subprime and near prime since they've been tracking this number for over 40 years. It's the lowest rate, right? And so CarMax Auto Finance just last week announced that they're looking at dipping their toe back in the subprime market, right? So there's conversation that's beginning to happen, and we're going to start hearing more and more of lenders coming out saying, okay, we're ready to get back into this game, which is a bonus. I call it a subprime boom. It will be, in my opinion, we're going to have the best and biggest near prime, subprime, and deep subprime boom ever. But we also have something else that's coming. Remember the negative equity we've been talking about for the last 4 years, right?
Yeah.
So the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau recently put out a definitive report negative equity in auto lending. What they should also put, and they don't have added here, is negative equity in auto lending and dealership sales, right? Because that'll eventually happen. So back in December, you remember when Edmunds put out a report that they said that 1 in 5 vehicles that were financed rolled a little more than $6,000 in negative equity. That was back in December. What they didn't say, because they didn't have the data, but we know through experience, is that the untold truth is there is not one company that tracks and reports the negative equity that could not be rolled. And we all know that the negative equity that could not be rolled is way higher than $6,000. And in many of those cases, John Q. Public could not get the approval to roll that much negative equity. It just wasn't going to happen. The lenders were not going to take on that risk. So this study was released by the CFPB in February 2023. Here's what they came up with. They sent out 3 orders to captive lenders. They sent out 3 to finance companies and 3 to banks, and asked for them to answer all these questions they had. And the data said more than 10% of borrowers finance negative equity from a prior vehicle loan into a new loan. We know that number would be higher if those consumers could get approved, but they didn't, and they couldn't, right? So now they're still rolling around in that negative equity. Number 2 is consumers who finance negative equity from a prior vehicle loan into a new loan were more likely to have their account assigned to repossession within 2 years. So let's think about this. The highest retail pricing we've experienced on MSRPs and used vehicles was in 2021, right?
Yeah.
If we followed their logic, they're saying 2 years. That means it's starting in 2025. These repos.
Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the data on late payments and or defaults? Because that was climbing up there for a while. What's that looking like now?
Still huge. It's still huge. But this, so it's the link that I'm going to be associating everything to for the experience state of the automotive finance. There is I think it's page 44. It's either 43 or 44 that does talk about the 60, 30, and 60-day delinquency rates skyrocketing. However, I believe that we just got saved. I believe that the finance industry, not just the automotive, we're going to be a beneficiary of it, that the consumers who are strapped on making all their payments, would like to find a way to restructure, have now been given a lifeline. The government just created a program. It's a test pilot, right? There's something like $13 trillion in untapped equity in first mortgages that are between 2 and 4%. So those people are not going to get a second mortgage that requires them to refinance the first one and they pay a high interest rate, or get a line of credit that's 5 times that interest rate. However, the government just said, okay, here's what we're going to do. It's a limited time, and it's the first time they're going to do it, and it depends on the success of the program. A first mortgage holder with super low rates does not have to refinance their first mortgage now, right? So if they got a 2 to 5, 2.5, 3%, they can now qualify for a second mortgage capped out at, it's like $72,277, or give or take, right? I don't know why they got that specific number for their second loan, but that's the number. And it's roughly $2.5 billion that's set aside for this test, right? So if every single person that wanted to apply for this program that started this week, starts right now, this week, that means 39,000 people, 39 new second mortgages can be acquired with a max of $72,000. So think about all those people that are, in an incredibly upside down situation. They're maxed out on their credit cards, but they owe $15,000 more on the car that it's worth. This lifeline to get $72,000 on their second mortgage could totally change the industry and could help us. However, the warning is, can it exacerbate the problem? Because let's go back to what happened in 2021. Why did people spend so much to buy new cars and on trips and everything else like that? What was happening in 2021? They were getting money, right? The government was giving them money. They were also getting loans at 2 to 3%. The rich effect kicked in. So now people felt like they were rich and they were spending money left and right. That could happen again. But between now and then, if I were a dealer, I would learn everything I can about this program and start educating my consumers that I can't help now to get in line or be one of the first ones to get access to that money, because they may not be available to them because it's there. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as I started, what happens in the mortgage and retail and home sales trickles right into the automotive industry. And I think it's going to be super fast. So this is our week over week wholesale price changes. Any questions so far about this, Paulie?
You know what's interesting about automotive and real estate, how they relate to each other, how the automotive finance follows the home mortgage finance. It's funny, the exact opposite is how real estate people market themselves in relation to car people, right? Car people tend to be, this is not an unscientific number, but they tend to be about 10 years ahead of real estate people in marketing themselves online. So it's funny. That's what I see, my experience, knowing a lot of realtors and seeing a lot of realtors in the market, comparing that to what I see my brethren in the automotive business doing to market themselves. It's funny. It's like the exact opposite.
And imagine if they did market themselves as effective as a real estate agent, because essentially that's what they are. But they're for the automotive industry. They're an automotive agent, right?
Yeah.
So this is our wholesale week over week change. Data goes back to 2021, but if you just focus on December 2023, where I'm pointing with the red line, you see the dip, and then you see the wholesale price increase, and now we've had a steady decline, right? So the market depreciation, it continues to surpass pre-pandemic seasonal trends, which is for most of June and for where we are trending right now for the last 6 months. So it's averaged less than 0.25% per week. Currently, this rate of depreciation is hovering around 0.5% per week through most of June. As I said last year and the year before, when used retail inventory was about 40 days, that the dealers need to start looking at their pricing strategies starting in June through July to be right-sized by August. So we don't have a whole lot of time, right? An example is this list of auto groups. This was put together by my good buddy, Sky Hallman, at One Auction View. And it tells a really strong story here. You take, and he put this out on LinkedIn. Carvana had 2,677 vehicles, 9% age. Days on the lot, 59. CarMax had just under 11,000 vehicles, with 17% were aged, with an average days on lot of 67. And you can go through and you could see Penske, Sonic, Group 1, Lithia, Asbury, AutoNation. And you like here, AutoNation, 39% of their inventory is aged with the days on lot of 100 days. So what are these groups doing? They're not going to wait. They won't wait 90 days until August. Now, he put this out 2 weeks ago, so it was still June when he put it out. Now they're making executive pricing strategies and decisions to liquidate these inventory that's over age, because the average days to turn is 45 days right now. So there's an opportunity on used cars. These are on used cars. So it's tremendous opportunity if they structure themselves right and market themselves right to get ready by August, because we all know what happens between August and September is a huge seasonality adjustment that can result in millions and millions of dollars of write down. And why take that loss if you don't need to? Take it retail. All right, retail listings. This tells a really good story. So if you go back, you see the wholesale.
That's a crazy number of days on lot, Paul.
Yeah. When you look at it, right? So I just want to reemphasize, you see the depreciation that's happening on wholesale, but are we seeing the same impact on retail, even with days on lot? We're not. So week 1, January, we're 26 weeks in, and look how stable the black dots are, right? Those black dots represents the adjustment in the retail ask from January 1, 2024. We're roughly, what's that, 2.5%, maybe a 3% drop from where we started the year out at, compared to the drop in wholesale valuations. So what does that mean? The dealers have even more margin today than they've ever had before, right? So it's pretty impressive when you're looking at the opportunity they have. I don't know why this came up again, so let me bypass that one. This is our retail listings to get a sense of how are we doing nationally with used vehicle listings. You could see the roller coaster ride up until week 15, 16. And then week 15, 16, we started stabilizing. And we have a slight dip, but at least we're above the red line. For the last couple of years, we've had a lower supply of available pre-owned inventory to sell. We're still stressed in the 0 to 6-year-old inventory, still very much stressed. And we still see that we're not going to have pre-pandemic levels of inventory used until 2027, late 2027, maybe early 2020.
I was just going to ask you, how far out are we looking? Because we've had a shortage of cars coming off lease, cars coming in.
Correct.
For several years now. So that obviously is going to play out. So we're looking at 2027? At
least.
3 years plus from now.
Correct. Because we have to exhaust through that cycle, right? We have to exhaust through the cycle of all the vehicles we've sold used over sticker. We sold many of those pre-owned cars for more than they sold for brand new and financed them for 72, 75, 80 months, right?
Yeah.
When they were new, they got 60 months. We still have a large subsection of that inventory that's still in the market.
At higher advances too, right?
Absolutely. And same thing with the new inventory. All the new cars were sold for well over sticker and for longer terms than normal. That's going to we have to work through that inventory. That's 0 to 3 inventory, 0 to 3-year-old inventory. And then we still have a shortage of rental car and fleet vehicles that's available. They just started getting inventory this year from the factory, but they're still buying more pre-owned vehicles to stock for their sales, for rental and fleet sales. So we're not anticipating a resurgence back to pre-pandemic levels until 2027 at least.
Well, what's something funny is that in our business, that's really the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
When you think about it. So it sounds like a long time, but the reality of it is in our business, it's not. Greg's got a couple of comments here. He says closing on more down and shorter term to get a better rate. I've been seeing that. New and used cars are aging. So used cars are 45 days average. How about new cars? Where are we at on new cars?
So I was trying to get that information through my network, and I have to change my password. Couldn't get in to see it, but The last I heard is that the new car day supply is stopped.
75.
So yeah, it's 75. But if you remove like Stellantis and
right.
and
I don't want to mention any names, Paulie.
Yeah.
But if somebody were in the market for a particular new truck today.
Yeah.
I think I know which brand to go.
Right. But if you were to remove some of those outliers that are there, then you're about 75 days. But you keep those outliers in there, it jacks it up. It's the same theory with the stock market, right? You got the S&P 500, and everyone's like, oh my God, it's doing so great. Well, not really. If you remove the top 7 players, the Magnificent 7, what happens to the unmagnificent 493? They're not doing anywhere near like they should be. It's the same thing for us on the new car side. We got a few brands that are just still crushing it. You remove those, the real data says it's a sobering experience.
Greg says this market is teaching dealers to learn how to earn more while doing less.
I think Greg's 100% right. And I think that methodology was also learned by the factories and finance companies in 2021. They realized that they don't have to overproduce so much. And then they could get more per vehicle and they can finance more per vehicle. I think there's still a strategy to be able to reduce the volume output to be able to maximize their overall profitability.
Now, some banks have gotten out of the subprime, and others have cut down the advance dramatically. What kind of do we have any kind of average numbers on how much they're cutting back on the advance?
Well, the LTV is roughly 117 right now across the board. But when you take a look at what they've done as a percentage, since 2019, the average distribution of subprime, not near prime and not deep subprime, it's roughly 21 points, almost 22%. Again, the lowest penetration of subprime consumers in almost 40 years. And then the deep subprime is roughly 4.7%. Again, lowest penetration of finance consumers in that category in almost 40 years. But the near subprime has been fluctuating between 19 and 19.5% for the last 5 years. And that's been pretty stat. In my opinion, as I said earlier, is because of the 650 beacons, 650 prime credit was adjusted down to near prime.
Yeah, I was going to say the numbers aren't what they were, so that's got to skew some of that data.
Yeah, well, that's from experience state of the automotive finance. They've got them and Equifax also have a similar report, very telling. But you got to read the tea leaves, because they give you the data, but then you got to understand how did they get the data, what equals to that data. And like we've experienced in 2008 through 2010, when the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau was looking for a scapegoat to blame for this segment of the consumer population was harmed because of any one of the 7 categories of discrimination, right?
Yeah.
They went after Toyota, Honda, GM, Ford, and once the finance arm got fined, then they went after the most egregious dealers and dealer groups that were doing the same thing, and they got that data from the lenders. That negative equity report that you and I just reviewed,
yeah,
they're going to get some data from those lenders, and they're going to say, okay, what percentage of dealers gave you the most negative equity? Hello.
Numbers don't lie. It's not going to be hard to determine patterns.
Yes, and they're going to and they will find a pattern. That's why they put the report out there, and they'll be able to match it up. Now, how do we use that to our advantage? Train our people, restructure our ability to help those people trade out. Oh, what's that? He's saying, would supply
Nathan
demand.
Williams, would supply and demand, the laws thereof, have an effect on things?
Demand will be strong, supply will be low.
Which means that the pricing should remain stable.
And as we've seen, retail pricing is stable, right? We're seeing that the wholesale pricing is kind of is dropping. One of the reasons why, in my opinion, why wholesale pricing is dropping is the average age of the inventory that's listed in the market today. It's anyone who gets their hand on a 0 to 3-year-old vehicle with good miles to retail, that's bringing gold. It's a feeding frenzy in the auctions. A 4 to 6-year-old vehicle with average miles per year, that's also bringing gold, and it's a feeding frenzy. Those vehicles that are old.
But those are cars that we're going out to buy, right? Those aren't necessarily cars that are just coming in on their own.
Correct. The ones that are
coming with buying those.
That's correct, because most of the people who have that inventory bought it in 2020 and 2021 and 2022 at overpriced, right?
With embalming fluid.
Yeah. So it's the same thing we've been saying. If we're going to do this now, we've got to prepare, because this is what's going to happen later. And we're here now. We're here where we have to have these intelligent conversations to help our consumers understand, how do we help them get back out of that negative equity position we put them in. And the government just threw a fabulous lifeline out. I think when that really takes hold, in a couple weeks, when the media starts talking, speed of information, right? When that information gets out there and people start doing it and their expectations meet their knowledge, and they could pay off. Oh, you mean what? I could pay off my 3 credit cards I'm paying $700 a month on now? What? That's $2,100 just like that.
Anybody marketing that?
It just came out this week. It was just approved this week.
No, but I mean, it just approved this week, but who's marketing it? Like, how's the word getting out?
But that's my point, right? Educate your people to start having these conversations. Hey, I know you owe 10 grand on your vehicle more than what it's worth. Here's an opportunity for us to help you get out of that. Here's how we need to do this. You got money down? You want to be able to access the equity in your home? Did you know that you could do this? Print it out. I'm gonna put the link in on after the show's over, all the links to everything I'm talking about.
Any dealer that grabs this now and proactively goes out after their database, wow, talk about being the hero.
That's right.
Because it's like anything else. There's the small percentage of those dealers that are going to grab a hold of it and run with it. And then there's going to be the bulk of the dealers that are just kind of wait and see. Well, I don't know if it's going to work. Let's wait and see how the other guys are doing.
I'll go right back to that. Speed of information sets expectations. When the expectation is met or exceeded because the knowledge that consumer has gained, the level of trust goes through the roof, and they'll do business. Customers for life.
Nathan Williams said, I've always been told that if demand exceeds supply, the price goes up, and that it only goes down if supply exceeds demand.
As long as it's affordable, Nathan.
Right.
Right. We have an affordability crisis close to, but I think the last number I saw was almost 65% of all pre-owned cars is unaffordable for most people today. Look
at this. Greg Dudley will be a topic in tomorrow's meeting.
Which one? Oh, talking about the Lifeline. Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
I had to listen to that. I think it was Fox News that put the video out, and I was listening to it. I'm like, no, that can't be right. And I rewind it. No, it can't be right. And I listened to it again. And then I went to the website and got the Fed minutes and was reading, how it would work. And so basically, let's say Bank of America wants to do these second loans. They have no risk because they do the loan. They automatically turn around and sell it to Freddie Mac. And once Freddie Mac starts doing it in volume, then Fannie Mae needs to step up and start doing the same thing. So it's just a snowball effect. And their initial the pilot program is only $2.5 billion. That's roughly 39,000 mortgages. Better get your first. Dealers I'm telling you, they need to be the first ones to get their unfair share of the first 39,000.
Oh, this is a scoop here tonight, man.
Yep. I was so excited when I saw it. I said a subprime boom's coming. The reason, and the number one reason why the government can do this, they made this law in 2008. In 2008, the 110th or 111th Congress basically said we can socialize losses and privatize profits. So they can put all kinds of programs together to help stimulate and keep the economy growing, as long as businesses can participate in the profits. And that's what this program does. So it's a win-win for right now, but it could be another way of just exacerbating an already bad problem.
That's huge. I liken that to the number of used EVs where the payment is in that sweet spot where there were so few, and the dealers that jumped in made money.
Oh yeah. There's
anybody that acts on this here now, like Greg, tomorrow morning, is going to be in their meeting. I mean, that's freaking huge. Now, Nathan says, I wonder if Canada will catch on to this idea. I mean, it's a whole nother country, a whole nother government.
But they tend to follow us.
It works.
Because the way it used to be is you had to refinance your first in order to get your second. Now you can keep your first at such a low rate and be able to help consolidate your debt, get out of your negative equity. If I was in my dealership today, like Greg, I would have been educating and training all my people already and calling them back every single customer that is on the edge. All they needed was more money down. Get in line, get on this program because it's available to you now.
Reminds me of the cartoon for way back when, the kid in the knickers and the cap and the newspaper bag. Extra, extra, read all about it. Wow, that's huge, man.
Yeah. I'm gonna put I'll put that link out there for your audience to see and read because the opportunity is huge.
Share it with your network.
Yeah.
Michael Larkin, winner, chicken dinner. So glad I was able to join the two Pauls today. Nice to see you, Michael.
Always great to see you, Michael. Always great.
I'm still blown away by that.
Yeah, it's like I said, I had to redo this 4 times so I can keep it concise and stay, because there's so much more to talk about. When you go into the delinquency rates, kicking the can down the road. This is a part of that, helping all these people who are in these really forbearance plans. That's really not impacting their credit yet, because a part of the requirement when they did the forbearance plans back in 2021 and started putting it out there, they were not allowed to report to the credit report. So you got people, severely late and on their car payments. It's not showing up on their credit score. People who haven't made a payment on their mortgages, still not showing up on their credit score, right? So they have the chance through having a higher credit score to get out now and still preserve their first mortgage.
Now, maybe I'm looking too far into this now, but the housing market is changing. They're still commanding good prices, right? But I feel as real estate has always been cyclical, those values are going to start trending downwards, right? So now, if we have an infusion of monies into second mortgages, and now the values are starting to go down, aren't we kicking the can down the road and potentially opening up another problem down the road? Of course, it's not my problem or yours, but
that was the point of the article. Is it's a great save for now, but could it exacerbate an already bad problem for later? And I think it's a catch-22. I think the right person, a smart person would take this lifeline and use it to help save themselves. And they've learned their lesson of living too rich on credit, and they don't need to anymore. Because now they've been able to combine, like I said, a few credit card payments and a maxed out auto loan, and be able to get that down to just one simple payment. Instead of having $2,500 in payments, they may only have $500 a month in payment.
Or perhaps the BK.
Right. It's a tremendous lifeline. And we'll see what happens. I think starting next week, you'll start hearing people promoting it, talking about it. Let me see if I can pull up the link and I can share it with the audience now.
Look at that, Greg. BDC will be on this message first thing. I love this, man. As I put in my show every week, real actionable items you can use tomorrow in your stores. Oh my God, I love this.
Yep, and it's backed. I will never share anything I can't back up and document. So this is the article that came out. Let me block out of this. Can you see it? Please turn off your ad blocker in order to view all the must-read headlines. Okay. Anyway, this is not
what we want to do. Turn off the ad blocker.
Yeah. Don't want to turn it on. But anyway, that was the link. And it is
we lost Paul. I think he hit the wrong button, but I'm sure he'll be back in just a moment. Wow, that's crazy. That's a crazy scoop you got here tonight. Make sure you take good advantage of it. I can see Greg Dudley is right on it. This is incredible. And we have Mr. Machine back.
Sorry,
hit the wrong button, Paulie.
Yeah, I was trying to hit stop sharing the screen, but the link to the article, but then the actual PDF it's a lengthy PDF that you can get, and I'll put that link in, and I'll share that with you so you can share it with the audience.
Excellent. Let's see here. Nathan has a comment. All we need now is someone who can explain these things to Joe or Josephine Blow so that they can understand this more clearly. I would say that should be tomorrow. This article the link that you're going to post to the article, I would say anybody that's sharp, print that in multiples, commit it, like know it, understand it, and tomorrow morning, clear the deck. Everybody come on in. We've got a very, very important meeting, because the people that are going to get those phone calls are going to have a different feeling about their dealer than the ones that don't.
And let me tell you what just happened. Let me educate you on this. If they're the ones guiding their customer through the process because they told the customer is going to be the one. I got a guy, or I got a gal. I got someone I absolutely trust.
And the funny part about it too is that it goes on and on, because now people talk, right? What do we talk about? We talk about real estate, we talk about cars, and we talk about sex. Those are the things that people talk about.
Right.
So as people talk about what their dealer's doing for them, and the other people, wait, what? What are you talking about? My dealer didn't call me. They didn't tell me that. I mean, here's your opportunity, right?
Yep.
To score some massive, massive points here.
Yeah. So depending on how you look at it, the negative is people start spending all the money and don't really learn their lessons from what got them into this in the bad shape they're in now financially, and so they just borrow that money and continue the same practice. And then there the tax consequences that come from that. Paying off an asset with cash that's on a appreciating asset, but you're paying it off on a depreciating asset. You got to think about that difference between those two as well.
But that's a life situation that we're always going to have. Right? I've been saying for the last few years now, 95.5 is the new 80-20.
Right.
There's always a percentage of people that will learn from it, benefit from it, and run with it, and then there is the larger portion that just won't. But here's how I look at it. Doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. If I'm the dealer, if I'm the guy, I'm your guy, and I'm looking out for your best interest, you're the guy they're going to call forever.
So the one thing I couldn't find out is why the specific number of 72. I think it's $72,277. But why that specific amount on a second mortgage? Did they already calculate
some data?
Yeah. Do they already have a data point that says this is the average credit card debt and negative equity that 39,000 homes can borrow?
I'm blown away by that. That's huge.
I mean, you think about it.
Forecast on rate cuts.
I think in September we'll see one. Yeah, if you saw that spike, that increase, and the only reason why they did the rate cuts was to try to slow inflation. Well, when you're printing $1 trillion every other month or so, you're offsetting the benefit of the increased rate costs, and everything's just still going up. We have too much money chasing too few goods. That's the very definition of inflation I was trained on. I don't think anyone will disagree with that. That's pretty much what it is. That's what it means. There's just not enough of inventory. Back to Nathan's request. We don't have enough houses. We don't have enough pre-owned vehicles that are affordable. We don't have enough new vehicles that are affordable. Same thing on groceries. They've just gone crazy. When you stack all the factors that are driving the cost of daily living today, the average person can't afford to live. I mean, I just saw an article that said State Farm told the state of California they're not renewing 70 some odd thousand policies to insure for homes because it's just too expensive now.
And cars too. Cars and car insurances have been dropped also and gone up considerably.
Yeah.
Now, to your point about some of the other consumable goods and foods and stuff, the price, some of the pricing that I've seen data on, some of that pricing is artificial, and I think there's been so much shaming that a number of those companies have actually lowered pricing that doesn't seem to coincide with anything else that's happened in the market, other than an awareness.
So what the recovery we have, for the longest time, it was called a K-shaped recovery. I think you remember how I described the upper arm of the K and the lower arm of the K, right? Upper arm of the K, that's top 30% of the population. Lower arm, bottom 70%. Think 650 and below big credit scores.
Yeah.
They're now calling it, and I'm calling it, a selective recession. If you're in the top arm of that K recovery, you're not experiencing the same level of a recession that that majority of the people are. You make great money. You're on the top of the scale. Yeah, the last stat I heard is that even people who are making 125 to 150,000 are now living tighter than they used to be, but they're still living good, right? It's just tighter, right? So that's not the majority of the population. It's 75,000. Is the average income. So we need to, as dealers, we need to align our strategies, our inventory, our marketing, our lenders. And we need to start educating to where when that 70% does come in, how do we engage them? Are we brooming them so we can get to the other 30%? Or are we trying to work them to help them?
Wait, are you suggesting somebody would get broomed at a dealership because
No.
there's not a wallet in mouth? No way. Well,
well, the data is suggesting that that's been happening.
I tell you what, long before there was data, there was personal experience. I could tell you, I've seen it happen. Person would come in and the salesperson would be like, "You're looking for what? Oh, I've got somebody coming in right now, but you see Bob over there? Hey, Bob, come here. Mr. Jones wants to talk to you."
Right?
I've seen it happen, man, before the data came out. That's so funny.
Especially when you have a newbie on the floor. Hey, he's new. He needs to understand what's going on here.
Hey, who wants to buy a car today? So let's get to a couple of comments here before it's too late. Greg Dudley says, my builder contacts have stopped building new and for something to have to do with a lot of storm damage work.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. I have the information. What time can you be here? Nathan Williams, word of mouth, always the best. Mm-hmm. And you know what? That word of mouth's got to come from the dealer if they want to make it valuable. And regarding that number of 72, 2,077, was that something like that? So that sounds like a number they pulled out of a hat. No, I think it's more scientific than that. Nothing happens by chance.
Right.
All right, we have Katie Lamphere. I am a little tardy. Apologies, no problem. Did you share the website address for the article you were trying to share on screen a few minutes ago? Thanks for sharing this information. Not yet, but Paul's going to share it after the show. There's something about the platform that you need to do it afterwards for some reason. Mm-hmm. And congratulations to Katie, because she started a new role. That's very exciting. I saw a thing that she's decided to stop working. That was her post. Further reading, it's because she found something that she really loves. So it's not really like work. I love it. Congratulations, Katie. Wish you much success in your new role there. Yeah, so Paul's going to post that, after the show. Golden handcuffs, and how is that going to impact new and used car sales?
Well, that's the whole purpose for this, the trial period that just came out, right, for the second mortgages, is to preserve those people that are in golden handcuffs so they can keep that prime mortgage, and they're no longer required to refinance that one to get access to their equity. So if you had a 2.5%,
depending on how well that program goes, they could extend it. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, they only threw 2.5 billion out at it, so we'll see. But like I said, 39,000, first come, first serve, and it's. I think in the next couple of weeks, you'll start hearing about it on the news. You'll hear it about from financial institutions pushing it, trying to get their fair share of it. And I think if the dealers do the same thing, they'll be able to help alleviate some of their oversupply in inventory and help consumers out of there some negative equity.
And you heard it here first from Paul Machin on Sunday Night Live.
Yeah, I knew they were working on something. I just was not expecting it to be this.
Christmas comes early this year, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to impact a lot of people.
Oh yeah, it's going to be tremendous.
If it properly work. It's huge.
It's going to be tremendous. I said something was going to happen, and this is one of the things. It's a catalyst. It's a catalyst of what we need to happen. Just like what happened when they came out with the mortgage moratorium. It was just a few weeks. They also came out with similar programs for the automotive industry, but it wasn't regulated. The lenders chose to follow the regulated guidelines for the mortgage side and duplicate it on the automotive side, and it just became as a matter of fact.
Nathan says, before you know it, you'll hear it on TikTok. So if anyone has a TikTok account, would be good content. Make sure you give Paul Machin credit.
Yeah.
Because you heard it her.
Oh, I just happened to be, I kept my ear to the ground. I got lucky on that one.
Hey, luck is the result of good planning, man. Right?
Yeah.
You got lucky, but we spend so much time researching our craft and we get lucky because we spend a lot of time getting lucky.
Yeah, the biggest challenge we have right now for our industry is how do we get to the 70% that we're not being able to get to? How do we get more? How do we get lenders to want to help, get them better terms, get them better rates? Yes, there might be some risk in there, but there's a large population, like I said, that was pre-pandemic. They were prime, and through no fault of their own, they're now in the lower leg of the selective recession. They still make it. They still make good money. They know how to make their payments. They might be a little bit stressed on their payments, but they still know how to do it.
This new program certainly change all that.
Right.
Give people a normal life again.
And I think that's I think that's one of the main reasons for this program. And I see more benefits than I see negatives out of it.
I think so. Nathan Williams says, and preparing in advance too.
Yes. Yes.
Any final thoughts? I
just think we need to, like what Nathan said, prepare, train. This knowledge has got to be, distilled, shared, the right kind of conversations. How do you have that conversation with people? And if they don't qualify, what can you still do to help them? What does that conversation look like? How do you guide those people through the process? Training to me is probably the most underscored thing that the industry is lacking.
And the sad part about it is training is always the first thing to go on in the budget. But preparedness, I mean, that's key, right? Knowing the information, preparing for how to deliver it, and then having a plan B and a plan C. I can tell you from personal experience, I remember fondly, it was a Saturday, I needed one more car to hit my bonus, and I'm on a test drive with a customer. It's Saturday. It's 4:30 in the afternoon. Okay. The door says 5 o'clock, but the reality says whenever. Right. You close whenever. At 4:30, we're test driving the car, and I'm asking the qualifying questions. And in my head, I'm doing the math, and I'm thinking, this car's not going to work.
Right.
Not going to work. But before I got in that car, I had a plan B car. I had an executive car that had a few miles on it where the math did work. It was in a different color combination altogether. But let's face it, we have to get away from some of the basic stuff and start thinking not outside the box, without the box.
Right.
I had this
That's
other
right.
car. I said, you know what? I said, here, turn around. I don't think this is going to work, but I've got an idea that I think will work for you. We went straight back to the store. We test drove the other car, and guess what? 7:30, I'm at the gas station filling the tank while I'm spraying the windows doing a spot delivery at the gas station, okay? Bottle of Windex, a roll of paper towels. That car was going with a WEO on a full detail. But it was going to look as good as it could look that day. Yeah,
That's the training.
It was the training, it was the preparedness, and having a plan B and a plan C. So your advice on training and how to have that conversation is hashtag priceless. So with that, Paulie, I thank you very much for coming on. Let's look at the third quarter 24 for our next update.
Absolutely.
Anybody that's not connected to Paul or myself, whether it's watching it live or on the replay, by all means, we welcome relevant connections. And right after the show, Paul will put the link up. Smart Money says download it, commit it to memory, and have copies for everybody, and make that your first meeting tomorrow.
Yep.
Because it's got to be all hands on deck to take advantage of a very small window of opportunity.
Yes,
and with
sir.
that, I wish you safe and successful next week. And we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live. Thanks again, Paul.
Take care.